Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Channel Expert Hour, Strategies to Grow Your Business in Today's Climate, sponsored by Weebly. I would like to remind the audience a few housekeeping items before we begin. First, notice the widget bar along the bottom of your screen. From left to right, the media player, which allows you to adjust the volume. Also, the Q&A box widget allows you to submit questions and or comments throughout the presentation, which we highly encourage. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, the Twitter post widget allows you to share your thoughts about today's event on Twitter. The slide area widget allows you to share to view the presentation as you would like. And the online help widget offers guidance for any technical difficulties. If you experience tech issues, you can also hit the F5 key to refresh your webcast console. Second, we invite you to get social with us. We invite you to this event to be an interactive and engaging experience. If at any time you hear or see something interesting during today's presentation, please feel free to share it on Twitter using the widget. Third, we often get questions about moving or resizing the slide window. So we want to remind you the webcast console is customizable to your viewing needs. Just click and drag or resize the console to accommodate your computer monitor. And now, I would like to introduce today's presenters. First, please welcome Bill Clayman, VP of Strategy Innovation at NTM Technologies. As a data center and contributing editor, he has extensive experience in this space, from data center management, hosting, cloud, deployment. He interacts with many enterprise organizations on a regular basis to help align IT strategies with their direct business goals. And last but not least, please welcome Chris Sheridan, Head of Channel Sales at Weebly. Chris has extensive experience in the hosting cloud industry. Prior to Weebly, he spent nearly 9 years at VeriSign managing the top ICANN accredited com and net domain name registrars in North America and Europe, and 8 years at Enom, where he focused on growing Enom's extensive reseller channel with a specific focus on domain name and value-added service sales. His expertise is a real treat for you today. And with that, Bill, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, and hello, everybody. Welcome to this amazing webinar. I'm really excited to be talking about this topic. And Jonathan absolutely did not even come close to stuttering there. I'm also the contributing editor for Data Center Knowledge as well as work. So definitely get a chance to experience everything from the data center world into the cloud, into hosting, and so on. So this topic of conversation, we've got a great list of attendees here and a really great presentation for you today as well. This conversation in general, we'll talk about cloud, hosting, everything that's happening with your websites, the workloads that you're trying to push into distributed data centers, and in cloud in general, has been easily one of the most fundamentally important and really critical kinds of conversations that we've been having across all sorts of different kinds of businesses, verticals, different kinds of organizations, and really just companies of all kinds of different sizes. What do I do with my business, and how do I enable cloud computing in this amazing hosting architecture to help enable my customers as well as my partners? So before we get into a little bit of an outline here and a little bit of the conversation as well, it's important to understand that cloud computing has pretty much revolutionized the way we do business, create strategies, and support our users. Today, it's more important than ever to know and understand the scope of what a hosting provider can do and the types of services they can provide. And that is one of the most important points of the conversation today. Think and listen about the key word there, cloud and hosting services. So we're going to talk about some best practices to differentiate yourself in this really, really competitive landscape. We'll talk about a little bit of a checklist in terms of offering the resellers, hosting companies, what they can do or what they have to do to effectively serve their customers. We'll also talk and guide businesses as well as your customers in how to build a real hosting strategy. For example, you should definitely consider some of the following big questions. Are you hosting an e-commerce site or just an application? Are you supporting a web portal or some kind of a back-end system or database? How prepared is your cloud provider around business continuity and, of course, reliability? Most of all, can your cloud and hosting provider support your business and help you grow? So with that, today, we're discussing how businesses can directly align with cloud and hosting providers to create more agility, more growth, and, of course, better go-to-market strategies. And so that brings us to the title slide, sort of like the menu slide here, in terms of what we're going to be discussing and what we're talking about. So we're going to mention what's happening in the cloud industry, in this cloud world, the data center and hosting, some of the evolution, some of the biggest trends that are happening there as well. Every one of these statistics, please pay attention to them, because we're going to take you right now into 5 years from now. And these aren't just random stats. These are absolutely analyst-driven statistics that are being found from all sorts of different kinds of organizations. So they are being impacted today. Cloud and hosting is absolutely changing the way we do business and actually utilize our resources and impact our customers as well as our partners. So we'll take a look at those real business challenges that are making us evolve and move to that next kind of architecture. We'll understand modern hosting questions. We'll take a look at this hosting and cloud provider checklist that people should be aware of and what you're actually looking at. Then we'll talk a little bit about selecting the right type of hosting partner, take a look at strategies, best practices and considerations, and then a little bit later Chris is going to talk about the actual cloud hosting and management architecture around this truly turnkey type of solution that can enable and evolve your business. So let's get started. I mean, honestly, this is one of my favorite slides. Let me just go to the next slide there so you can see my favorite slide. It's the talk and conversation around this evolution and the cloud and the data center. And we're not moving at these slow speeds anymore. We're absolutely at breakneck points where companies absolutely need to realize where a hosting and a cloud architecture can help their business. And we'll talk about this in a minute. It's not about forklifting everything. It's about utilizing proper pieces in your environment to move that in the cloud. But we'll get there a little bit later. So let's take a look at these statistics. First of all, this one's from Cisco. By 2019, 86% of workloads will be cloud-based. And we're seeing this kind of movement into the cloud where cloud environments are providing new kinds of economics for databases, websites, e-commerce, portals, where you no longer have to host these internally but create this unparalleled level of resiliency where you know your environments can be consistently available and working for you. So that's why we're seeing this huge movement of workloads into a cloud environment. Here's another one. Gartner recently said that over the next 2 years, nearly half of all enterprises are going to have some kind of a cloud deployment. So there's new ways to deliver applications and mobility. There's new ways to deploy applications that are now cloud-born. So SaaS-based applications specifically. And it's important to see that if you're not having this cloud conversation today, cloud services and hosting services conversation today, that you know your competitors are probably are, or they're working with other providers. So it's important for you to get your head in the game right now and see where cloud can help you out, because you know that there's spending happening on this already. And Gartner pointed out this very fact already for us. So global spend on infrastructure as a service is going to reach about $16.5 billion in 2015, which is an increase of roughly 33% from 2014. Users and businesses are using new tools to stay productive, and there is a direct tie between the application, your business, and specifically the data that you're hosting. Finally, annual global data center IP traffic is going to reach 10.4 zettabytes by the end of 2019. First of all, we are already in the zettabyte era of cloud, and we're seeing that more data is being managed by the business, and insight into analytics keeps your competitive edge going, where it's critical to understand what you're hosting, how you're hosting it, and all of this migration introduces this new kind of conversation and challenge around the modern business and what we're trying to do. And all of this revolves around you, the partner, the customer, and what is everything that's influencing you. So it's important to understand the real market dynamics that are impacting your organization. So what are users using today and what they're actually accessing. Now, when we talk about users, everybody, we're not just talking about people in your shop, in your organization, but we're specifically talking about remote users, customers, people accessing your resources to conduct business. So what are they actually getting into? Is it just an application? Is it an HTML5 application? Is it a portal? Is it e-commerce? How are you enabling your applications, your cloud and your web-facing apps, e-commerce portals to be as powerful as possible? Then new services are supporting your business strategies. This is a part of the market dynamic. New cloud and hosting services are changing the way we create go-to-market and business strategies, and that's all impacting you and your business and your organization. How do you stay competitive and use cloud to support your business? That has been one of the biggest misnomers in this whole cloud conversation, this big hierarchical conversation. You have to move to the cloud. The cloud's the most important thing out there. It's what enables your business. But what does that actually mean? How do you actually create services around cloud computing? And that is where we break down this conversation, where, again, it's not a full forklift, but understanding what pieces of your environment need to be living in the cloud and actually processing in that kind of hosting environment. So how do you enable global services? It's not just isolated to one environment. Working with cloud providers and hosting providers specifically, they need to be able to enable your specific use cases. Remember that. We're going to talk about use cases in just a minute. That's a really important side topic as well, but we'll touch on that. So all of these market dynamics are impacting you, the user, the customer, the provider, and it's important to work with a cloud and hosting provider that can help align with market dynamics and help you stay ahead of the game. So with this understanding, with all this market dynamics and conversations around evolving markets and trends around cloud and data center, let's look at the modern business today. What are the 5 biggest challenges? And this is, again, something that I'm seeing from the analyst community, from a lot of folks that are trying to move into the cloud, where we have these daily, almost every other day conversations around customer comes to us, or a partner, or somebody who wants to leverage the cloud and says, I want to do this, I want to move to this kind of service, but I don't know how, or what are my dependencies? What user groups should I actually move? My business has become a lot more challenging to work around and actually enable the whole cloud conversation. So that brings us to the first challenge. Enterprise applications and data requirements are large and difficult to manage. So in the past, we had this concept of a perimeter, right? If you're inside the perimeter, you get all the information. If you're in your data, it might be an application, for example. If you're outside the perimeter, your experience is deprecated. There wasn't such a thing as cloud hosting or cloud providers or delivery methodologies. Today, that's fundamentally different. We have many different branches, many different kinds of offices, all accessing some kind of a data center architecture, some of them looking at portals, some of them looking at cloud applications, websites, for example, and they're all distributed. And you can't manage this all independently. You need to be working with a partner that can support all this kind of architecture, which brings us to the second point. Organizations are challenged to understand where cloud hosting creates competitive advantages. So this is where we need to broaden this conversation. We'll talk about these challenges as far as involving the entire business unit. But this is where you see the big picture, but you also need to understand where cloud specifically does enable your business, whether it's faster innovation through software or cloud, being able to burst resources more quickly when you see peak times, for example. All of these responses to customer demands and environmental challenges allow you to respond much faster from a competitive advantage perspective, but we'll touch on that in just a minute. So the third challenge that we're seeing today is that businesses across all verticals and industries are looking for ways to expand into cloud hosting and help their businesses grow. So that's an important conversation to have. It's not that the organizations are asking why, but they're really, the conversation now is around how. What do I do? Where do I evolve from? And a part of that conversation, why I have verticals and industries in there, is mainly because compliance-bound shops, everyone from HIPAA, SOX, PCI DSS, are all looking at ways to get into the cloud. Why? Well, the regulations have actually changed and shifted, where cloud and hosting providers can actually allow you to bring all these different kinds of environments into their ecosystem. So questions are growing around the kind of services that can be provided, and they're not just for the enterprise anymore. Education, pharma, healthcare, various types of verticals and industries are absolutely leveraging cloud to be able to expand their business. Quick example, I'm going to go on a quick side note here. There are organizations out there that you can actually host full-on e-commerce platforms that are PCI DSS compliant, because they create e-commerce engine gateways within their ecosystem that can process PCI DSS information and still keep you compliant. So just as an example, where you couldn't move a resource or a certain part of your ecosystem in the past, now, as long as you ask the right question, you can see where cloud hosting and a cloud provider can impact partners as well as customers. The fourth one is that cloud providers are offering new services all the time. So it's an evolution of cloud, and it's an evolution of hosting, where you have to ask the question of, okay, my challenge in the past wasn't deploying a website. It wasn't maybe even deploying some kind of an application. My challenge was creating a turnkey kind of solution where I can do an update, where I can run a patch, where I can do a drag and drop kind of an update, for example. That's where I was losing all my time. There are partners out there, and there are actually great providers that can create this kind of completely drag and drop kind of scenario, which eases the integration, the deployment, actual management of your content that's living in the cloud. Something to consider. Finally, aligning business and strategies with cloud partners and providers. This is where we are now bridging this very, very important gap between business leaders and owners and their IT staff and what they're actually trying to deliver. The biggest challenge throughout all of this has been making sure that our business leaders and in that corporate environment, understand that cloud computing and hosting providers are absolutely an enabler to the business and something that, as a partner, you can absolutely provide to customers and enable what they're deploying, what they're management, and make their lives so much easier. So today, technology is directly tied to the business process, and that's so important to understand. It's not just something you throw money at. In fact, technology directly enables the business. So as soon, or the quicker you can understand that, the more you can provide to partners and, of course, your provider as well. So these are some of the bigger challenges that we're seeing, this understanding around cloud, this understanding around movement into this kind of ecosystem and so on. So with all of this, it's important to know that your provider, your cloud ecosystem, it does have a lot of these tools, and it can overcome a lot of these challenges already. You just need to understand your use case, which we'll touch on in a second. So what brings us to this next big question: how do I unlock the power of the cloud provider? How do I work with a partner that can understand what I'm trying to do, what I'm actually trying to accomplish, and where my goals really revolve around? And there's four very, very critical aspects to creating a cloud partnership, and it's important to go into those as well. So in terms of creating this cloud partnership, what you should look from a cloud provider and how you enable your own services and actually be able to align with market dynamics as well. First of all, actually, I think I'm going to outline all four of these first. There we go. All four are out. Better cost control. So in terms of deploying cloud hosting and a kind of a cloud architecture, you absolutely want to control your resources and your costs, right? Whether it's provisioning of resources, being able to allow new users to come on board, being able to provide web access, portal access, being able to create very fast transactional processes in your cloud environment. All of this creates better cost controls. You're also simplifying your environment, and you're reducing management complexity. You're no longer managing these heterogeneous architectures where you have one portal provider ecosystem that's handling all your e-commerce, for example, all of your web-bound traffic that's required for your customers to be able to process, access, like I said, e-commerce portals, different kinds of databases, different kinds of applications, SaaS, for example. Anything that you're trying to provide from your cloud and hosting ecosystem is now in one spot where you don't have to work with and manage different kinds of points, which, again, complexity and fragmentation in today's business are absolute challenges. So anything you can do with cloud and hosting specifically to reduce that, I implore you to take a look at it. Finally, in the third place, we see improving workload efficiencies. So one of the challenges is creating this resilient, distributed architecture where cloud computing is absolutely leveraged. When you have components within your own data center, I'm sure they work great. They can work very well for you. But hosting your own website, maybe creating load balancing rules, ensuring resiliency, ensuring that you're not complacent with the architecture, that you're consistently up to date, can be a challenge. So improving workload efficiencies is absolutely a part of the cloud partnership, because when you put your ecosystem in a cloud environment and begin to present that to other partners or our customers, for example, you need to ensure that those services are always available, that they're highly resilient, that they're, of course, secure, that you can create automation around those services as well to provision new resources as needed. So all of these efficiencies allow administrators to work better, to process better, and ultimately support the business and the user as well. Finally, you can innovate through cloud and agility. So this is one of my favorite points here, because you're actually innovating through software, through the cloud specifically. If there's a new update, if there's a new kind of a new solution that you can leverage, your cloud partner will come to you and say, this is nothing short of an upgrade. Minimal downtime is required, if any at all, and these are the benefits that you can get from a new kind of portal or a new kind of management system, a new kind of ecosystem that can help you control everything that you're doing with your environment. So when you create a good cloud partnership, these are the critical aspects that you should be looking at. So one of the things that I promised, outside of just looking at creating a cloud partnership, is actually creating a partner and cloud provider checklist. And there's four really important points. We're going to stay on this slide for just a minute here. You need to understand. So although there's many different kinds of cloud providers which have various kinds of services and offerings, some underlying components will remain similar or at least the same. So prior to moving to any cloud environment or any kind of organization, every organization, both large and small, you should understand how your business directly benefit from moving into a cloud or a hosting platform. And most of all, with cloud hosting, there's some really important components that can make up a really good architecture. So from a checklist, let's start going down this list. Number one, where is your data being hosted and how well is it being distributed? So one of the biggest advantages of cloud computing is that one of the biggest advantages of cloud hosting is that it is remote and of course off-site. So the infrastructure is supported by an outside provider who will, in very many cases, manage the connection, resource utilization, accessibility in the environment, and so on. This can be a website or even several virtual machines. In fact, it could be a resource that you require to be presented. These providers will own their own equipment, provide certain types of uptime and SLA agreements for your partners and for your customers as well. So basically, your organization won't have to worry about hardware, software, just the website and the workloads that are being loaded into the cloud. So let me give you a popular use case for offsite. You can create your own CDN, your content distribution network, and these content distribution network services can improve the user experience for web and mobile content as well as applications. So things like rich media and video. So hosting providers can offer edge services, network optimization, deliver software packages and updates, and even provide services such as global server load balancing. Something really, really understand about what you're hosting and what you're actually providing. Number two, are you able to dynamically control resources? That is a very, very important one, and we just mentioned this around cost controls as well. So cloud computing is built on both a shared and dynamic resource architecture. This means that many times you will be using equipment that's shared. Now, this doesn't have to be the case. If you need dedicated equipment, talk to your cloud provider. I'm sure they can give it to you. So in many cases, you can still request this kind of dedicated hardware or resource as needed, but by dynamically allocating resources as you need to your customers and your partners, cloud hosting providers are able to offer this sort of competitive package which can fit many different types of organizations and verticals. Furthermore, as this kind of need arises, cloud hosting partners can add additional service as you need them, or even space, or even new kinds of subdomains and sites quickly based on the demands of the customer. So this can be driven based on user activity or even the time of year that you require it. And here's the kicker, it can all be automated. So you know your resources are going to be provided when your company experiences peaks or bursts, for example. Distributed locations, managing cloud, and working with workload distribution. That's number three when you work with a cloud hosting provider. So the beauty of the cloud is, of course, its distributed nature. So cloud computing is just one place. Rather, it's a set of distributed servers and data centers all designed to host your customer solutions. So there's a number of benefits to this type of architecture. So first of all, you're definitely going to increase the kind of resiliency that you have for your environment. So whether it's a website or maybe even hosting a full full-service provider hosting kind of architecture, there's a good chance that your servers, or what's living on those servers, is actually replicated to other sites as well. So this is big for disaster recovery and business continuity platforms, which are being provided by service providers and cloud hosting organizations. So with a distributed architecture, you're able to create powerful load balancing environments capable of making your hosting workloads a lot more resilient. So that's an important conversation to have. In knowing how well your content is distributed and what you can actually do with it. Finally, cloud hosting and your business needs, aligning directly with what your business and what your customers are actually requiring. Let's get this one point out of the way. No one cloud provider is really the same. So each is able to offer various services based on their own capabilities. So providers might select a niche, or they might be capable of supporting a variety or various different kinds of verticals or technology needs. So from a customer's and a partner's perspective, it's important to know that no one provider is the same, and each has their own benefits and drawbacks. For example, some providers might offer a lower cost but only support one data center in their area. So there are certainly cost savings there, but again, you might see a challenge where you have a single point of failure, for example. Furthermore, some cloud providers and organizations are trying to find the right fit. So the first step in identifying the cloud use case and knowing where is a given provider is going to fit in is understanding what you're trying to do and understanding what you're trying to deploy in general. So work with a cloud hosting provider which can meet your IT and business needs both in the short term and the long term. This is where we talk about aligning directly with what you're trying to do in the business. But it's not just this checklist, right? A lot of times what I get is, okay, Bill, this is a great checklist. What else do I need to know and understand around my business? And that comes to point number 4, aligning with cloud hosting and understanding your business needs specifically. So to be successful, to actually be able to do this, you must identify your use case and your business use case effectively, because without this, You're going to have some challenges, absolutely, because even if you run down the checklist, even if you understand what your cloud provider is doing for you, when you actually go to move to deploy your website or your hosting environment, if you're not aligned with what you're trying to do, you are going to run into some challenges. So what is your business use case? And this is one of my favorite slides as well, because you get the chance to understand what cloud can do for you, what can you actually host in that kind of environment, because it is pretty broad. Gartner recently described cloud as this disruptive phenomenon with the potential to make IT organizations more responsive than ever. So cloud computing promises economic advantages, speed, agility, flexibility, borderline infinite elasticity, and of course innovation. But here's the really important piece. By the end of this year alone, at least 20% of all cloud services are going to be consumed via external service brokerages. So that's an important thing to understand. And this is why having the right kind of use case is absolutely critical. So let's take a look at a few of these, and maybe some of these use cases you can reference as well. So first of all, seeing things like websites, e-commerce portals, and so on. And that's a very common way to partner with a cloud hosting provider is to create some kind of a type of online presence. Some organizations choose to host their own infrastructure internally, and in those situations, there might be scenarios or reasons to do so. Understand when that is applicable and when you actually need to move into the cloud. However, many others are now electing to move their environment into a hosted, managed, and controlled ecosystem managed by a cloud provider. These sites can be e-commerce environments where customer portals can be used to make a resilient method for access and visibility directly into an organization. So when selecting a cloud provider for this kind of use case, websites, e-commerce portals, for example, make sure to work with a type of provider that can meet your means and meet your requirements. And during the planning stages, ensure that your partner and provider has the right type of components to support your organization's needs. So the proper types of underlying hardware and software, good support, international domain support as needed, backup and redundancy, compliance and regulation needs. Let's not forget that. And of course, growth capabilities. These are all very important factors. Here's another one to consider, application hosting. So this is another very common way that a cloud provider is able to deliver applications, whether through a portal or directly through some kind of a website. So in these cases, you have to ensure that your provider is able to support this type of infrastructure. Application delivery isn't always as easy as just building a website. There are several serious considerations that must be understood prior to any application deployment in a cloud environment. So although the following, I'm going to give you a couple of lists here, it's not all encompassing, it does outline some of the more important elements when selecting the right kind of cloud partner. So application delivery security, user load balancing is very important. International access for applications is critical. Latency and wide area network recommendations and requirements, and of course, database capabilities for your own organizations if you, let's say, have some kind of a custom-built application. Finally, maybe you're delivering virtual machines or desktops. So this has become a growing trend with many kinds of organizations. Take note, poor planning around desktop or VM delivery can absolutely result in bad experiences for the users. There's several considerations here in selecting the right type of partner. So resource utilization, latency between the user and the cloud provider, the VM and desktop load balancing capabilities, expansion capabilities, and of course desktop and VM application capability. So depending on your use case, it will certainly depend on what kind of cloud architecture you work with and how you align with them and what you're actually doing with them. So with that in mind, let's kind of go to the next part of the conversation in terms of aligning your business with cloud hosting and actually creating a plan. So this is an important slide to consider because you're going to get some realities here. When you create a cloud and a business alignment sort of plan, you have to have a plan based on these 4 parameters. First of all, any sort of successful cloud and hosting implementation is going to have involvement from gathering requirements, training, and of course planning. So you have to have that foundation to understand what you're hosting, what you're impacting, and even user scenarios as far as who and how they're going to be accessing your environment. Expectations. So this is a really important part. Don't expect that every cloud provider or service is the same. Make sure you do the research and understand the differences. Set real expectations, not just for your cloud provider, but for your business as well. This is where you want to do maybe like a business impact analysis and understand what you're trying to host and put into the cloud or hosting kind of an architecture, and set your expectations around that so you're not disappointed if something's not performing the way it should be. Or potentially, you set expectations out of the norm. So the other very important piece here is the execution plan. Define, identify, and deliver. So define the path, identify your teams, and create this kind of a deployment plan. During the execution phase, make sure you involve as many parts of your team as it's necessary to put this kind of cloud ecosystem to play and work for your own environment. Now, your rewards, make sure you tie results to rewards because the upside in potential cost savings far outweighs acquisition and deployment costs. Remember, you're creating a highly resilient architecture supporting very advanced cloud application, web service kind of environment. And all of these factors are absolutely giving you rewards in terms of faster deployments, better access to your customers and your partners, better access to resources, and of course, a much more distributed and a much better foundation of an environment. So those rewards can certainly be seen from a technical as well as a business perspective. But here's the kicker, and this is kind of an important part to understand here. Deploying cloud and maybe signing the contract and picking the partner even potentially, that's the easy part. But believe it or not, that's actually kind of the easy part. Implementation can be pretty easy, sort of rolling down the hill, right? We sign a contract, we spun up some services, great. Here is where it's very, very important. Getting value from the technology is where true benefits are demonstrated by your provider. Not just signing the contract, not just deploying your first VM or your first website, but actually getting not ROI, not only ROI, excuse me, but time to value. How well is it impacting my customers, both intrinsic and tangible and intangible benefits, for example, need to be understood, because once you see the value of a cloud and a hosting providing architecture, that's when you see that implementation is sort of outside the question, but how can I truly benefit from deploying this kind of architecture, and where are my monetary, business, customer, and partner benefits that are going to be coming out of this? So with all of this in mind, not just signing the dotted line, there are really, really great ways to sort of ease into this conversation and directly into this cloud computing and hosting adoption strategy. So let's cover this really, really quick. It's important to help you and your customers move to a cloud a lot more efficiency. So in terms of moving into an environment, these are really 5 great best practices that I've seen done that have helped this sort of ease into a new kind of environment. First of all, executive sponsorship will help drive cloud adoption. When you're working with a new kind of website, or you're trying to put a new portal in place, or maybe it's a SaaS application, whatever, working with your executive team to go to them and say, listen, we're not just deploying a new kind of technology. We're deploying a new kind of business strategy and scenario. We're actually creating a new kind of business process that helps us create a new kind of competitive edge, impact our customers much better, and create a truly agile business that can respond to today's market dynamics. Let me show you how. That's when you pull up a portal, you show how dynamic this kind of architecture is, and you show how resilient it is as well. And when you get business adoption, believe me, there's a trickle-down effect. That's something really, really important to consider. The second point is that cloud benefits should be accessible to all levels of the organization. So that's critical to understand. A lot of times I see, a web component or a piece of the environment moved into the cloud, and then 3 or 4 or 5 months later, 2 people in another division of the organization say, whoa, time out a second. We have that already being hosted. I had no idea that's such a great benefit to us. I had no idea this application was accessible to us. And really, they really didn't have time to ask the rest of the business what was going on. Make sure that when you are pushing some kind of a service or some kind of an architecture into the cloud or hosting environment, let the organization know, 1, because it's going to help align everybody in tune, and it's also going to help understand more business benefits of where you can align your cloud hosting and cloud partnerships specifically. Training and awareness is critical. This kind of spans the other 2 points that I just made. Please make sure that all the people that are using your cloud know, or your cloud hosting architecture, know what they're doing with it. I'm not talking about accidentally clicking the delete button and removing a website, but specifically working with different parts of your organization so that they can understand where this tool, where this cloud hosting environment can directly benefit them. I can't stress this enough. Here's the other thing. A blanket training program for everybody isn't always the right use case, because there's different administrative staff, there's different kinds of business users. So in those situations, if you want to have the maximum kind of benefit of your cloud environment, make sure you have training and awareness across the entire organization. Number 4, make sure your cloud solution can evolve with your business. This is not a static, complacent solution. This is not something that's just going to be in place. When you work with a cloud adoption methodology or with a specific partner, make sure that they can evolve, make sure that they can support, whether it's APIs for your kind of architecture and your applications you're trying to put into the cloud, or resource requirements where you know a year from now you're going to be doubling in size. Don't sign on with a partner that's going to be limited and say, oh, wow, either your cost is going to skyrocket or we simply can't support that kind of user, because if you have to migrate after you've spent that initial investment, that's a headache, and that certainly does not make your cloud project look very good. So make sure your cloud provider can evolve with you as well. Demos and pilots are great ways to get started. So that's probably one of my favorite points here as far as easing into any kind of cloud adoption strategy. The beauty of cloud and hosting is that it's not on your site. It's remote. You can absolutely ask a provider, hey, I want to test out this website, or I have 500 users or 50 users or whatever. I want to actually see how well this will perform. Can I get a sliver? Can I get a small instance? Can you do a demo for me? Can you show me how the management architecture works? Will it fit into my environment, my needs? That's been one of the greatest ways to actually feel and touch and see how cloud and hosting architectures are different and how they can impact your business today. Seeing a PowerPoint deck, watching a presentation, this one not included because this one's great, but, seeing one of those, that's a wonderful way to get information. But get your hands dirty and actually try this technology out. If a cloud provider or a partner isn't offering you a demo or isn't offering you access in their architecture just to test it out, there's probably a problem. So make sure you do get a chance to actually try this out and work with this kind of architecture. Now, when you're investing and looking into cloud specifically, these are kinds of some of the best practices that you should absolutely look at and what you should be looking at as well. So these are tools, apps, and what you should be investing when it comes to cloud computing. Look for very simplistic widget-based site-building options that operate directly in the web browser. And this allows you to do things like easy drag and drop when creating cloud content and different kinds of cloud elements. Ensure that your ecosystem can work with different kinds of operating systems, Microsoft, Mac, Linux, and so on. And also make sure your provider can automatically generate mobile versions of the applications or the actual website. That's important as well, so the content is very dynamic based on a very mobile user. Good providers need to be able to support basic features for blogging and e-commerce. And site owners, you can develop your own stores with payments through PayPal, Stripe, Authorize.net. So it's important to know how your customers are interacting, even from a payment system, and what you're actually setting up. So although a provider might offer some kind of a storage package, it's important to know that there are different kinds of offers out there, and even some of them, I'm using air quotes, I know you guys can't see me, unlimited storage. But make sure you're aware that there's still some restrictions around individual file sizes. So, read the fine print, basically. It's important to know that providers should also offer its users iPhone and Android applications so you can monitor your traffic, your statistics, you can update blogs, respond to comments, add or update products, for example, and have direct access into e-commerce stores. So this is where management goes far beyond the PC, where you can actually manage your content and your cloud hosting environment from an application or anywhere where you're truly remote. So when working with a cloud or a hosting provider, it's really important to work with good customization tools and management tools. You have to ensure that they can allow custom HTML and CSS themes to be made, CSS, excuse me, and integrate with other kinds of third-party theme providers. So whether you're building a website, an application, cloud-facing, web-facing kind of an instance, you can have customization tools directly with you. Finally, flexibility and customization, above and beyond everything else. New cloud and hosting providers are going to give you this ability to add plugins into your website, of course other features as well. But this means that your developers have the freedom on your own platform to create new applications and integrate with existing or an extensive set of APIs. This means like working with OAuth 2, webhooks, REST APIs for sites, blogging, e-commerce, and so much more. That's all important to understand as well as far as the kinds of tools you should be looking for when moving into cloud. So a couple of final points, best practices, and then we're going to get some final thoughts going here and we'll start to wrap it up a little bit. But when we take a look at this kind of environment, and when you're actually moving to cloud hosting, please follow some of these best practices, or just at least keep them in the back of your mind. Cloud hosting helps with challenges around consolidation and agility. You're removing resources from your on-premise and putting them in the cloud. There's a lot of cost savings and benefits there as well. There's new ways to deliver applications and desktops. This is where cloud and hosting absolutely takes effect. You can do some research on this right now and see how this kind of environment can impact you. You can control and optimize content. You can optimize entire workloads and user groups. groups, you can segment your environment for visibility, control, and next-generation multi-tenancy. And most of all, you start to involve your business and IT economics around everything that you're delivering. You can onboard new locations and users, and most of all, you can extend into new kinds of cloud and hosting services. These are all big impactors and considerations around what you're doing with cloud and hosting specifically. So just kind of to wrap it up, I mean, at a very high level, just some final thoughts, I guess. You're going to have these kinds of questions, and cloud computing and hosting is never a completely all-encompassing, easy topic, but am I ready to evolve? How do I create these kinds of competitive advantages? How do I test these new systems out, and what will cloud do to my data center? Well, here is a little bit of a paradigm shift. Your data center has become the cloud, and what's important to understand is that you're connecting your business into different kinds of cloud hosting, web portals, e-commerce, websites, and so on that are facing your partners and your customers. So you have to be ready to evolve, and you can absolutely test these systems out today. They're available to you, and they're absolutely great and powerful, and you can actually test these things out today. And this will help you create a competitive advantage because, as I mentioned earlier, you're innovating and evolving by using cloud as a direct tool and, of course, a direct enabler as well. So with all of this in mind, with all these kind of topics and conversations points, it's important to actually work with a partner that can give you these kinds of tools and capabilities around cloud hosting and so on. And so with that, to talk about a little bit more about this, the actual platform that can involve your business, your cloud, your organization, your customers and partners to become of this cloud and hosting movement, it is my pleasure to introduce Chris to kind of talk a little bit more about that, the kind of platform you need and the kind of tools that can help you evolve your business. So with that, Chris, take it away.
Yeah, Bill, thanks again. Really appreciate it. Great presentation. My name is Chris Sheridan, Head of Channel Sales for Weebly. And today I want to talk about, just basically piggyback off what Bill's talking about, but specifically talk about the opportunity we see in the website creator space for web hosts in particular. And then secondly, how we're using our cloud platform, to enable resellers to really capitalize on this big opportunity. So some quick background, leading up to January 2015, we had a number of web hosts reach out to us and say, Chris, is Weebly available to resell? And for the longest time, we've been a retail business, but in January, we really wanted to address this need from hosts to resell a more modern, a more progressive, easier to use website creator. So in January 2015, we created our cloud platform reseller program. And one of the key components of that program is flexibility. And as Bill pointed out, we try to give hosts two options. One option is we host the entire solution for them, so truly 100% cloud in that case. Or on the other side, we try to give hosts the option to host the published websites on their specific servers as well. So give them the opportunity to host sites on their infrastructure. And then finally, long term, our cloud strategy really focuses on apps. And, Bill mentioned this as well about, strategic thinking around your cloud initiatives. For us specifically, when we think of the hosting community, we want to be able to provide resellers in the future the ability to integrate an app store into the Weebly editor and seamlessly allow their customers to add other services to their website. And then secondly, mobile is very important to us long term in our cloud strategy, and enabling resellers to leverage our iOS and Android apps, not just to allow their customers to manage their websites on the go, but also to build websites. For example, creating websites off of tablets, which was where we see the industry going. So that's just some quick background on our platform. What I want to focus on, though, is this opportunity. Let's begin with that, the opportunity in the website creator space. So one of the things we do at Weebly is we invest a lot of time in research. And what I want to do is share with you some specific statistics that kind of point to the big opportunity specifically for resellers in the website creator space. So last year, 2014, we did a survey among consumers that were offline. So offline meaning they had no web presence. And we started with three simple questions. We said, do you trust a business that does not have a website? And 56% of respondents told us that they don't. They don't trust businesses that don't have a website. And then we asked, is Facebook viewed as a substitute for a website? And 98% of respondents told us that Facebook is not a substitute for websites. Rather, it's more seen as complementary to your primary website. And then lastly, we asked these offline consumers, if you are to go online, so you're going to reach out to a web host and you're going to start to build that personal online presence, what are the key critical tools you're going to need? You know, for example, domain or email or website. And 58% of respondents said that the website was a critical tool that they would need. And so, you know, at a high level, today the website still has high consumer trust. It's not really being impacted by social media, and it's still viewed as a critical tool in getting online and beginning, you know, your relationship with your web host or beginning to build your online presence. That is going to be a key service they're going to be looking for when they eventually go online. So let's dig a little bit deeper on two other statistics. So we then asked these offline customers, do you feel you have what it takes to build a website today? And 75% of respondents said that they don't feel they could build a website today. Now that tells us two things. The first is that through our reseller program, we really want to spend a lot of effort in continuing to educate the market on the availability of these cloud-based, easy-to-use, do-it-yourself website creator tools. There's demand there. There's just not knowledge that these simple tools exist and that the bar has come way down to build a website. But secondly, what this statistic tells us is that the opportunity is still very much big. There's a lot of customers sitting on the sideline. They want to build a site. They're just not aware of the tools. They're not aware of the options they have. They're not aware of how easy it is, quite frankly. And so this is something that gets us really excited about the opportunity. And then one thing we did, just to kind of round this out, final statistic for everybody, we looked internally at Weebly, and we looked at the customers that we've been onboarding each month. And we surveyed them, and we asked them, did you have a website prior to joining Weebly? Did you have a website prior to joining Weebly? And 50% of respondents said they didn't have a website. And again, this statistic points to us that the opportunity is very big, and not only that, it's really attractive because what we're doing is we're attracting net new customers. We're not stealing market share. We're not trying to convince people to switch from another platform, but there is a lot of folks out there that really want to start a website. So what does this bring us to, basically? Growth. You know, today we're talking about growing your business. And you know, when I look at growing the business, and again, you know, I used to work at enom.com, large hosting company, large domain name registrar. And now that I'm at Weebly, you know, I really see the website business as a real critical product for all hosts. And our cloud offering is really trying to enable everybody to really achieve these three goals. So the first is making it easy for you through the introduction of do-it-yourself tools, easy drag-and-drop editor, to onboard these net new customers. Again, coming online for the first time, in need of lots of services, and in need of your support. And that kind of leads to my second bullet point, big upsell opportunity. So we're using our cloud offering to attract all these customers to build their website. But what it should mean for you as a host is it presents this really big opportunity to sell them a personal domain name or a business class email address. You know, the key things they need to kind of really round out that online presence. And then what we've noticed in working with our reseller channel over the past year is that other tools become necessary, right? Over time, we're marketing SEO tools to them. We're marketing SEM tools to them. And then ultimately, people start to upgrade or think about launching a store. And that opens up a whole new field of value-added services related to e-commerce. So again, big upsell opportunity. And the root of that opportunity is the website. And then finally, long-term. You know, again, what's the value of this technology that Bill is referring to? You know, for me, in the short term, there's onboarding new customers and, of course, the upsell. But in the long term, a year later, if that website gets published, and a lot of hosts do a great job of incentivizing customers to do that, but when that website gets published, you should see positive impact on domain renewals, a positive impact on the renewal of the email because these services are being used. And once a website is published and the customer is engaged in the website, that's what we see. We see this side effect of domain renewals, hosting renewals, email renewals, etc. SSL certificates, for example. So the list goes on and on. So, in short, this is the growth opportunity we see in the market. Now, how are we helping resellers capitalize on this? So 2 quick points. The core of our program is this cloud-based web editor. The cloud editor, very simple interface. As Bill mentioned, drag and drop editor. You can see the elements on the left-hand side. Very easy for your customers to start creating their website. All the themes inside of this editor are responsive. There's no extra labor, no extra work for the end user to have to make or mobilize their site. It just works, and it will work across any device. In addition to that, they can preview what their site's going to look like on a mobile device before publishing it. So that's a really cool feature, so people can kind of look at the look and feel prior to pressing publish. And then last 2 points, very easy upgrade path within the editor. So as most customers either start with you on the free plan or the entry-level starter plan, it's very easy for them to move up to e-commerce eventually through the editor and then start adopting other services from you. And then finally, if they ever run into any issues, within this editor, we allow hosts to list their contact information so that support queries can be driven to you. So really the focus here is we host the editor in our cloud environment, and what we're really working on this past year is sales and marketing with the reseller. We want the reseller to really focus on promoting the service, educating the market on these new tools, and then we let the editor do the work on upgrading them and supporting them. So one other final point, looking a little bit more into the future. This is an example of how we envision our app store will look into the editor for our resellers. There's multiple apps. Like today we manage about 30 to 40 apps in our marketplace, and over time we're going to expose this to our cloud partners. So their customers will be able to drag and drop these apps onto their site. They'll be seamlessly integrated, and really the long-term strategy here is moving from a single revenue relationship to a multiple revenue relationship. So today, and for the past year, our reseller channel and Weebly, we focus on reselling subscriptions to website plans. That's a single revenue relationship there. In the future, with the introduction of the App Store, we'll be able to move to a multiple revenue relationship where resellers are earning a rev share, for example, off the various apps that their customers are buying. So, at a high level, we see a lot of opportunity in this space, and we see a lot of demand today from offline customers who want to get online, and they're just looking for an opportunity with the right web host to get online, to partner with them, start a website, and of course look at getting those additional value-added services through you. So with that being said, I'll thank everybody for your time today, and if you have any additional questions related to our program or our plans for the future related to our cloud offering, feel free to email us at business@weebly.com or visit us at weebly.com/host. Thank you very much, and I will now turn it back to Bill.
All right, and actually, Chris, this is Jonathan. I just want to say thank you to both you and Bill for those great presentations. And we're going to now transition to a time of Q&A where we can take some questions from the audience. But before we begin, I just want to remind the audience that this presentation will be available on demand starting tomorrow, so you can always come back and review it. But it looks like we've got a question or two submitted, so let's go ahead and begin. Let's see. Here's a question someone asked. What are some good ways that you can ensure resiliency and website hosting availability?
That's a really good question. So, Chris, let me take this one first really quick. First of all, those are some really, really great statistics that you pointed out over there. I might actually have to borrow some of those. 50% of people, when you asked them, said they didn't have a website initially, and then when you kind of queried them a little bit further, you saw that they needed that kind of site and directly impacted what they do as a business. So that was very, very fascinating to me. So what can organizations do once they actually make the investment? Make sure that their websites and their hosting environment actually stay live and resilient. Well, honestly, that's probably the first question you should be asking your provider. And even as a reseller, so you're working with Weebly here, for example, and you're reselling their services and even your own services specifically to other customers for websites, e-commerce, applications, and so on. The last thing you want, of course, is to see that kind of environment go down or experience any kind of issue. So service level agreements, direct integration and testing with the environment, the cloud hosting environment specifically, asking questions like where are your servers distributed, what kind of redundancy levels do you have? Tell me a little bit about your data centers as well. As much as we are hosting websites, sometimes your business might need to ask some physical architecture questions, and that's completely okay as well. So there's questions around what applications you're hosting, how you can keep that resilient, back-end database integration, where the resiliency comes in within that, and of course your website as well. All those little points where you require that kind of uptime is very critical. Now, the other little point that I want to make, and Chris, by all means, I want you to chime in after this, but doing something like a business impact analysis will actually help you answer the question of, okay, this website just went down. How much does this cost me per minute? Or how long can I live without this application that's living in my hosting environment? Or how long can I be down, and how much does that cost me per hour, for example? That's going to dictate what kind of resiliency services you need and how quickly you need to be placed back up. So just as a heads up from a DRBC perspective. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, you touched upon, I think, two of the main key points, which is this always comes back to SLAs. I think SLAs are very critical in understanding what is your provider stepping up to in terms of guaranteeing being online and being readily available and uptime and, other things like asking questions about, a lot of times SLAs are about unplanned outages, right? But I think another important question to ask when you're thinking about, resiliency and stuff is what's your schedule for planned outages? We still live in an age where there are planned outages, and so I think you need to get a good handle on that too and ask that question. And then secondly, like you touched upon, I think support's very important, understanding the type of support. Specifically in our business, one of the things that is unique about Weebly is, we just entered the reseller channel business with this cloud platform. But we've been around since 2007 with our very large retail business. So currently we're managing 30 million customers. And what's great about that is that puts us in a great position to kind of reassure our partners, look, we've been doing this for 8 years. We have over 30 million customers on the platform. And here's how we're managing that base today. And I think that's always been helpful to reassure customers that, we take security very seriously and we take the SLAs and the uptime very seriously. Because if we go down, it's not just a reseller going down, it's all those 30 million customers going down. So you wouldn't want that to happen.
Interesting stuff. Thanks, guys. And we're getting to the top of the hour, but we probably could take another question or two. And we got another one in that might be particularly interesting for you, Chris. This person asks, do Weebly apps work for European businesses? And then also, where is the support team for a potential French reseller?
Yeah, so the app marketplace is live on our retail business today. It has not been enabled just yet on our reseller business, but that is in the works for the latter part of Q1 next year. So when prior to turning it on, we'll have all the documentation available about the ability of certain apps to work either globally or in a specific region like Europe or North America. But the idea would be that the majority apps should work globally, and I think those apps that have sort of payment-specific features will probably be restricted by what currencies they support. Secondly, in terms of support, our reseller support is 9 to 5 North America, West Coast time. And then as we move into 2016, now that we have about 108 partners on our platform right now, and the majority of those are from Europe, we're starting to work on a plan, to expand those hours as we get into the early part of 2016. So, still in the infancy right now, but support's at the top of the list, and expanding those hours is on the top of the list. But the good news is that we are also introducing localized support as well. So German and French, as a side note, are going to be the first two languages we're going to look at supporting via email.
Wow, that seems like a cool opportunity. Very cool. Well, we're just about right at the top of the hour. Did you guys have any final closing thoughts you wanted to say before we wrap everything up?
Yeah, I think, this is Chris. I think just going into 2016, the feedback I've gotten attending all the various conferences, and I'm sure a lot of people on the phone have been at a lot of the same conferences I've been, I definitely sense a big focus next year, not just in growing revenue, but really in driving ARPU. And I feel like, this is where bundled thinking comes. This is where strategies start to evolve around not just selling a specific service, but a list of a package of offerings. And I feel like, Weebly has really had a lot of success this year as being a core part of those bundles. And so with our upsell strategy and our thought on that marketplace and moving from single revenue to multiple revenue, we're looking forward to working with those specific types of customers that are very interested in growing ARPU in 2016.
Very cool. Thanks. This wraps up our presentation. I'd like to thank Weebly for making this event possible. I'd also, again, just like to thank you, Chris and Bill, for all the great content you shared with us today. And as a reminder, this webcast will be available made on demand, so you can come back and watch it as many times as you would like. Another quick reminder, our next webcast and final one for the year will be on Thursday, December 17th, where we're discussing how to prepare for the new year for the IT channel and so forth. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a great day.
Thank you.